I'm not so sure I want to grow up anymore.
Growing up is not the problem. Forgetting is.
The minute of the hour of the day of the week of the month of the year of your life. Everything. Got it?
Grow up. Forget all about him.
It is scary. It's normal.
You are going to make a wonderful grown-up.
I definitely don't want to forget.
Well, I managed to grow up, and I never forgot the Little Prince.
So it's been a couple months since I uploaded my video about one of the most underrated films to this day, A Monster in Paris. And the reception I got from you guys was phenomenal. It was so nice to see that there were of course other people out there who recognized the film and were able to appreciate it and shed some light that it deserves. However, if you were to tell me that there was another obscure French animated film called Le Petit Prince, or otherwise known as The Little Prince, I wouldn't have been surprised, as many of these films tend to go unnoticed and somewhat lost to time or just forgotten. I mean, these films practically get swept under the rug when it comes to their massive competitors. It's 2011. Who wants to see the new Tintin movie when Kung Fu Panda 2 is right there? Who wants to see Rango when Hopper's actually... I don't know who the hell would have wanted to watch that.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck?
Within these underrated films, there's always a handful of people who remember them and appreciate them to this day. I'm just gonna warn you now, there are spoilers ahead, so without further ado, let's get into it. The Little Prince was originally a French novella published in 1943 by
Antoine de Saint-Exupéry,
who was a French writer, poet, journalist, and aviator. This makes sense because many of his publications are stories centered around or including planes of some sort. Sadly, on the 31st of July 1944, while conducting a reconnaissance mission over France, Antoine was never to return. 60 years later, the wreckage was found and identified as belonging to him. Antoine began writing The Little Prince during World War II, with his longing to return to France. He would create eccentric watercolour illustrations of baobab trees curled around planets, stars blooming with flowers, and snakes speaking of riddles. Although it's a children's book, The Little Prince makes observations about life, adults, and the nature of humanity. These illustrations would go on to become one of the all-time best-selling books. It wasn't long until other translations were made available. If you're not familiar with this story, which I don't blame you if you're not, because I had no idea this existed until quite recently, the story tells of a young prince visiting planets such as Earth, where he meets a pilot whose plane crashes in the desert, focusing on themes of loneliness, friendship, love, and loss. Over the years, there have been various film and audio adaptations and even an anime? Apparently there's another one on the way too, which is going to be using some kind of groundbreaking hybrid animation techniques, so that should be pretty interesting. There are honestly too many to keep track of at this point, but of course the adaptation I wanted to talk about today is the 2015 animated movie by Paramount Pictures Studios and Warner Bros. Pictures, directed by Mark Osborne, who is most known for co-directing Kung Fu Panda and the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. The film made its international debut in 2015 and was an instant success, grossing nearly $90 million at the box office, utilizing a mix of live action and stop motion animation. The film uses computer animation to depict the world of the girl and stop motion animation to depict the world of the little prince as she's imagining it play out.
Had an idea to illustrate the book in stop motion and wrap that section with the CG part of the film, this different medium representing the little girl's imagination, and it's incredible.
From Wikipedia, development and storyboarding of the film was completed in Paris. The team then moved to Montreal for the final phases of animation, lighting, colour and production, animated by ON Animation Studios and Micros Image. And of course, we have the legendary Hans Zimmer in charge of the soundtrack. At this point, he just needs a whole video. The film opens up with a series of drawings narrated by an old aviator who is played by the legendary Jeff Bridges. I really love the voice they chose for him, it suits him so well and he just sounds so comforting. The aviator shows these drawings to the grown-ups, but they simply respond,
Stick to arithmetic.
History and grammar.
We then open up to the main character. Well, it's never really mentioned. The little girl, played by Mackenzie Foy. The girl's mother is giving her a pep talk before her academic interview. The interviewers ask only one question: what will you be when you grow up? This unexpected question that she had not prepared for causes her to crash out, which honestly same. So with that failed, they switch to plan B. Moving out of town and finding a whole other life already planned out for her in one of these dystopian neighborhoods where everything looks the same. It's soon established that the little girl has the rest of the summer to prepare for her new school. While her mother races off to work, the little girl has her first encounter with the neighbor, the aviator. After trying to start his plane again and causing a bit of a ruckus, he gives the little girl a jar of coins to hopefully cover the damage.
What kind of a nut keeps an airplane and actually starts it in his backyard?
While studying, a paper airplane is thrown through a window. She opens it to reveal the story of the little prince and briefly reads through it before throwing it away. While sorting through the pennies, she discovers a variety of trinkets. Seeing these inspires her to keep reading the story as we fade into it. The aviator has crashed in the desert and comes across a strange boy, the little prince. He asks the aviator to draw a sheep, demonstrating the prince's childlike innocence for something simple and wholehearted, even turning down multiple attempts at drawing a sheep until the aviator eventually creates a box that symbolizes the sheep, which he gladly accepts. Out of curiosity, the girl decides to cross the fence into the aviator's garden. She meets him and they discuss the story. We learn that the little prince comes from a small planet that people on Earth called asteroid B612. One day, a rose sprouted on the planet and the little prince immediately fell in love with it. However, being both too young to understand love, he runs away. Back at home, it seems the little girl has lost track of time, so she hurries back inside.
And you stay completely on track with the plan. You can spend some time with your new friend next summer on Thursdays from 1 to 1:30. Okay.
Overnight, the girl continues to read. The little prince comes into contact with the closed-minded world of adults as he travels past nearby asteroids. He meets a king, a conceited man.
I'm the most intelligent man on this planet.
But you're the only man on this planet.
The tubby little ginger.
And a businessman who are all too preoccupied with their chosen careers and live alone. Over the summer, the little girl and the aviator become friends and form an irreplaceable bond, forgetting her homework and responsibilities, including the life plan. Back to the story, after lots of walking through sand, rocks, and snow, the little prince comes across a fox.
I'm not tamed, but if you tame me, then we shall need each other.
In other words, when they are tamed, the fox and the boy need one another and become unique in the eyes of each other, despite all the other boys and foxes in the world. Eventually, the little prince comes across a bed of roses. He realizes how far away he is from his rose and continues back on his journey. Before he goes, the fox gives him a piece of advice.
It is only with the heart that one can see rightly.
Around this time, the movie starts to break your heart a little, as it's implied that she found him just in time.
Thought I'd never find anyone who wanted to hear my story. Then you came along, just in time.
It's not long after that the mother finds out about the lying and slacking off, so she somewhat grounds her for a little bit. It's now the aviator's 8th day in the desert. They set out to look for a well and eventually find one. The prince states that too many people do not see what is truly important in life. However, his mind is set on finding his rose. Earlier, he came across a snake that suggests sinisterly that if the young prince so desires, its venom can return him to the heavens.
Tonight, do not come.
You didn't let him go. Not to the snake.
After the little girl reaches this part, she's angry that he would let him go to the snake. With a heartbreaking scene, the aviator is rushed away to hospital and the little girl, being crushed, is determined to start his plane and find the little prince for herself. With trial and error, she eventually starts it. She comes across a city planet full of adults and never-ending work. She also finds the little prince all grown up, consumed by his job. He seems to be a shell of what he once was.
Oh. Oops. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? It's alright, I don't need to cry. I don't need to cry. I'm a grown-up. I'm a grown man. I don't need to cry.
She attempts to jog his memory by mentioning his rose, and eventually he agrees to help her. There's not a lot for me to say about this act, but they eventually escape together after standing up to the businessman.
Never!
And the little prince remembers who he is. When they make it back to his planet, it's too late and his rose is gone. But despite this, he grows to accept it and move on.
I understand now.
The next morning, the little girl and her mother stop at the hospital on the way to school to visit the aviator. The little girl hands him a gift, compiling all of his drawings in order into one book. They share a last moment together before he states,
You're gonna make a wonderful grown-up. You broke my heart!
This film was an unexpected charm with its characters, pacing, and story that seemed to defy the dominating animation studios of today. I loved how it's not too afraid to show blood or tackle themes of loss. I mean, take the latest Lion King for example. You've got these lions practically clawing at each other for like 50% of the movie, and there's not a single wound mark or scar, besides the obvious one exception, but I think it's always a nice touch when you have a little bit of realistic qualities like these that just seem to make it more human.
Oh, we're gonna have to amputate.
What?
Another thing I like is how genuine the dialogue was at times. It's not trying to be constantly quirky or forcing jokes. I found the humor to be very subtle in a way that it makes it unexpected.
Wish I could stay, sweetie, but it's the Davis audit, and now Logan's in a panic, and Fisher wants nothing to do with it.
Logan.
Oh, no, it's my fault. My face shouldn't have been there.
Well, sometimes nothing needs to be said at all, but you can still piece together what the characters are thinking and going through with their body language. In the end, when the little girl's about to go into the hospital room, nothing is said for about a minute, but there was so much said at the same time. Or the second act when the old man is holding out a piece of paper. It's such a small detail, but so important in the means of body language communication. Another example is when the little girl meets the aviator for the first time, and the eyes alone is what makes it so genuine. Not a single word was said, but so much was resolved and understood mutually. This brings me to the animation and style. The animation is so fluid, and there wasn't really a moment where I could recall out of the many times I rewatched this where the animation was lacking or out of place in some sort. You can tell it takes inspiration from that sort of early Pixar, Incredibles/Up kind of art style, which was a bit nostalgic, and the stop motion segments were beautifully done, an unexpected delight. And without it, I think the film would lack the charm that it has. I miss so many little details in the first watch. I feel like I keep discovering more every time. Like the repeated phrase,
You are going to make a wonderful grown-up.
and how the credits go up instead of down. It's even detailed with its character quirks. This may be cherry picking just a little bit, or I'm looking too deep into it, but take the mother for example. Her character is this organized, articulate, busy working mum. Everything has to be perfect. The way she hoses the pigeons off the roof further supports this, hosing them down one by one in order in a straight line. Intentional or not, this detail is pretty neat. As far as I'm concerned, I had no issues with any of the characters and found almost all of them quite lovable, especially the aviator.
The aviator is a child in an old man's body.
He's a very conscientious character. He's caring. He's a very, very special character that wants to make connections. But in this world he's living in, he can't.
The little girl wasn't annoying or irritating in the way that younger protagonists can often be in media, or any character in an Illumination movie. Just looking at this orange-haired kid makes me so angry. I don't know why. As I mentioned before, the pacing was nice, and I liked how the A and B story synced up at times. Coming into a movie adaptation about a children's book from 1943, I had no idea what I was in for. And I wasn't expecting the creative spin the movie had on the book with these new characters and its grey and dystopian motif. Despite this, I still find it hard to look away from it, even though it's not as colourful as many would prefer. It had a great balance of serious moments and funnier/light-hearted moments as well. Of course, I don't think it was a perfect movie, but I do find it very difficult to find something bad about it. The only thing I would say is that there were some times where I thought the line deliveries were a bit off and awkward, or just confusing.
You run the risk of weeping a little if you let yourself get tamed.
Did you get that? Here, let me play it again.
You run the risk of weeping a little if you let yourself get tamed.
Yeah, I don't know if this was just me, but I had to scour through the internet to find the movie script to actually understand what that said. The only other issue I had was the third act sort of seemed a little bit different to the rest of the movie's flow, and I didn't really fancy it over the rest of the movie's pace. And there have been theories that it didn't even happen, which I'm honestly leaning a little bit towards now, as it's likely the little girl just imagined this after she fell from her window as a way of processing the previous events. But to truly understand this moment, we need to look at the 5 stages of grief. It goes as this: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Throughout the film, you can see the little girl demonstrating the 5 stages after knowing the aviator was soon to pass away. There's a LinkedIn article that explains this way better than I can in depth, so if you'd like to read more about it, I'll put it in the description because I think this video is already long enough. So while I was editing this video, I actually got sick, so that's why I sound a little bit different in this part, so sorry. Lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about the music. So yes, we have the legendary Hans Zimmer and Richard Harvey in charge of the composition. And coming from them, everything is so beautifully crafted with the way it flows with the scenes, to the point where there may not be too much going on screen, but you can still understand a certain tone unraveling before you from a simple flick of paper. To whispers of curiosity. Or even how the vocals softly hum in the background like a ticking clock to define the time passing in the montage. Again, so many small details that really make it special. The film also features a song that I'm sure most of you have heard on cat memes and TikTok and overall just cute videos, but I won't play it because I'm trying to get monetized. But if you know, you know. The film was memorable for adults just as it is for children, if not more. With all that in mind, here's why this film means so much to me and what anyone can take away from it. Growing up isn't the problem, forgetting is. Embrace adulthood, but don't lose the child within you. Don't let work or life demands overshadow the joy of the little things. Stay curious, playful, and present just as you were as a child. Grow, but never forget to wonder. But anyway, I'm probably going to end it there as this video is probably going to be way too long. If you like this video, it really helps me if you let me know by commenting or liking the video. Thank you again for watching, and I really recommend you watch this film if you haven't already. Bye!